An interview with an American whore. Drugs, prostitution, being a woman, and selling sex in the adult industries. Interview with an American whore named Anti-Lamour. This article was officially banned and removed from a major after getting 5,000 views in 14 days, and I was not running Google ads making money at all. Then it was stolen and assimilated by another lesser, but equally esteemed website a few years later. Neither online business model had ever been allowed to publish the interview in its entirety. So, now the readers can sample the unaltered and unedited full discussion between myself and Miss Anti. I think it may be the best interview I have ever done, and I want anyone who wants to read it to do so and pass it on to others. Thanks from Anti and myself. She always felt it should have been entitled, Life is Mostly About Sex, Drugs and the Rock and Roll Dope Show. I opted for a less rugged and risky title, but one that was equally explicit. Who is right we may never know for sure, but all involved were pleased with the end result. Admittedly, this interview was not as easy to conduct for several reasons. First of all, the interviewee was preoccupied through much of our discussion with things outside of the interview, namely getting high, answering text messages, doing her makeup, and changing clothing several times as we talked. All of this I took with a grain of salt, knowing who she was and not wanting to taint the interview by editing out the reality of her mood, her thoughts, or her honesty. Anti, which is a real nom de plume, not one made up for the interview, is a very direct and damaged person by her own admission. She has worked from the highbrow end of the adult industry, to the lowest alcohol motel room sex trade, and makes no bones about it. She is a modern woman in every sense of the word, and also a shy and vulnerable female in the truest sense. She is modest at times, an extrovert at other times. She is an addictive personality. She is also gifted with high-minded spiritual values. She is innocent-hearted, and she is also worldly in all of the ways her profession entails. I found her refreshing and definitely worthy of an interview, especially so because she is working in a world that is socially prejudiced, and generally assumes that women such as herself are a book that you only need read the cover to understand. This I think is backward and ignorant, so this article hopes to give a voice to one woman that represents many who have pursued the modern adult sex trade, and are many in the line of what we casually call the oldest profession. I want to introduce to you my friend and more than casual acquaintance. She is a woman, a modern American whore, her choice of words. The lovely lady, and as she calls herself the one-of-a-kind female, friend, and felon and modern pagan by virtue of being a woman, Anti-Lamour. Blake, it is a pleasure to be here with you, Anti. How are you? Anti, wonderful my dear sir. Ready, willing, and able-bodied, as always. Blake, is there anything you would like to start out by saying, before we launch into my interview questions for real? Anti, only that anyone reading this should be perfectly clear about one thing: I am not being paid for doing this. Whether my clothes stay on or they come off, this is the real me, for free and for as long as it takes. I have always wanted to do an interview with myself, so this is the next best thing. I am so happy you asked a little Arizona pagan girl like me. Of anyone you could have chosen, you are so sweet. Blake, thank you. Tell me why you consider yourself a pagan. Anti, well, pagans today are not that different than other times in history. A majority of pagans could be loosely called anyone who is an outcast, against the norms of society. Homosexuals, lesbians, hell, even Satanists are kinda pagans, because if the witch trials were to start all over again today, we all would be on the same crosses right next to each other. Pagans, Wiccans, shamans, New Agers, Satanists, scientists, whatever is not part of the status quo, and even the good sister Christians. But the main reason I consider myself a pagan is that I am a woman, and women have always been persecuted in one way or another. We are still second-class citizens in the eyes of much of the world. My spiritual beliefs aside, I am a woman who is involved in the modern sex trade or prostitution. I am a whore, and all whores are witches in the modern world, a scourge of sorts, right? Some people might not agree with that statement, but I know a lot of women and men who do. It is something that society needs to hear, in my opinion. Blake, when did you first come to these conclusions about yourself, as a woman? Anti, it was a long time ago. It was a book really, that first inspired the idea of women and witches in my mind. I think about it almost every day of my life. It's actually a book with this quote I memorized when I was probably 14. I read a book by Aleister Crowley, can't say I remember much of the book itself. I think it was the Book of the Law, or maybe the Liber 777 one, I don't know. But the quote I remember by heart: "Be strong, O man. Lust, enjoy all things of sense and rapture, fear not that any god shall deny thee for this." Now that is some next level shit. It's talking about developing every part of yourself no matter how dark or how beautiful it might be, that everything that is in your power to be is meant to be developed to its fullest faculty. I like to think of life like that. If I am studying a book on federal law, or exercising on the treadmill, or giving a wild-eyed blowjob, or putting a needle in my arm, no matter what I am doing in the moment, I am gonna be the best. The best student, the best athlete, the best whore, or the best junkie, better than anyone who came before me, or will come after. Yeah, it's an odd way to think about things, but it has been my outlook for as long as I can remember. Most people will make assumptions about who you are no matter what the reality is. Here is some of my reality. I have been on my own since I was barely 13. My mama was a methadone zombie, tried to trade me for $300 about the time I run away. My daddy was a heroin user but also worked as a detective for the narcotics division of our hometown police department, both undercover and later with the homicide details. He eventually graduated to internal affairs and I guess the pressure finally got to him. Heard he shot himself a week before I turned 16, couldn't have happened to a nicer asshole as far as I was concerned, but at least he wasn't any of the pricks who molested me before I was an adolescent girl. My mama left me alone when she would not out, and whoever was around usually tried something with me. It happened too many times for me to recall the names, or how many times. I do remember the first motherfucker who offered me money to keep it on the hush, or the down low as he called it, paid me, at 10 years old, $25, after he realized what he had done. 2 weeks later Jimbo came back around for another wham bam. So that time I stole his wallet and his car keys when he passed out drunk on my bedroom floor. I went on a little shopping spree, took all the cash his ATM card would give me, and lit his car on fire in front of the county sheriff's office. Then I ran away to my aunt's house for the rest of the weekend. She wasn't really an aunt, but at 10 she was the only friend I really had. Think her name was Claire. Kinda long ago, things get fuzzy back that far. Anyway, point is, my life had wrong turns from the start. So, I don't care what most would think of my life now, because they don't know shit, and mostly nobody cares anyway. So, I embrace every part of my life as a source of personal power. I don't see myself in terms of good, bad, moral, or any social norms. I practice the art of bitchcraft. I am a whore, I am in it for money. I am not a slut, sluts give it away for free. I suppose that will do for an opening statement. In Scene 1. Ha ha ha. Blake, how old are you? Anti, it's not polite to ask a woman her age, don't you know, but since you asked so nicely, I just turned 23 years old, baby. I'm an Aries. Born the same day as Adolf Hitler, and now Earth Day 2, 420 bitches. Hee hee. Blake, when did you first begin selling sex for a living? Well, I ran away from my second foster family at 14, and I guess I mostly sold drugs and hustled for about a year. I was crashing with my way older pedophile boyfriend during that time. So, I didn't really have to earn a lot of money then. He ran a photo studio out of his home. I was already fucking him before I ran away. And luckily, he had separated from his wife a couple months before that. I did housework, sold dope for him, helped around the photo studio, even developed film and stuff. But he did a lot of coke, so I usually only had to fuck him once or twice on the weekends, cause on his hardworking days he was too stressed and high to want sex or anything. So things were cool at first, but as the next few months went by, He started shooting up without me knowing about it. I wasn't even 15 yet, and didn't really know the signs that he had started using heroin, you know. All I knew was suddenly he started wanting sex almost every night of the week, sometimes 2 or more times a night. Then one night I discovered that he had been secretly videotaping us, and that led to me going to see his business partner without him knowing one morning. Reader's Digest version of the next few weeks was pretty screwed up. Blake, how so? Well, not only was he taping us fucking, but there were several friends of his in on it, and they had already been selling copies, I don't know how many, but enough to make his partner want to hush me up with a big ol' bribe when I showed up with all my head full of questions. See, this silent partner dude was now shacked up with Mr. Pedophile's soon-to-be ex-wifey. They were running a low-budget video porn business, editing, mail order, and my 15-year-old dumbass was starring in their 10th video release. Yay, me an underage porno star in booty before bedtime. I ended up really messing my whole life up within days of finding this out. Basically, partner dude offered me $2,000 cash to keep quiet, but I gave him a blowjob, then blackmailed him or I'd tell his new lady about it, which I did anyway. I ended up sleeping with her too. Then pulled a fast one on them both, stole an ounce of coke from their house, another 500 or so with her purse, and the keys to their Trans Am, a nice red one, really cool. Then took me and my hijacked ride on a 48-hour straight race to the one place I knew a girl could sell a lot of drugs quick, no questions asked. She lights a cigarette, pauses to exhale, then says, "Good ol' Las Vegas, baby." Which is where my new life really got started, as I arrived there on Halloween night. I remember that because the city was in full swing for the holiday. And I stopped at a shopping mall as I entered town to buy a bikini and a Hawaiian leif around my neck. I was a surfer girl for my costume. And I walked around all night in that polka dot string bikini and 5-inch stilettos. I was shaking my little ass for anyone who would notice. Blake, did anyone notice? Just one guy that mattered. I'll call him Mr. B. He ends up being the first man I would call a client. And he saved me from almost getting arrested by some pigs that night for loitering in a private casino lobby, dress code whatever. But Mr. B was an undercover, knew what to say, told them he was looking for me and was gonna run me in to save them paperwork, etc. He ushers me to his fancy blue Crown Vic narc car, straps me in front with him, we drive, we talk, and make friends on our way to his place outside of Carson City. But that's not really important, except that Mr. B helped me get my bearings, and got my feet on the semi-solid ground, helping me mostly by paying me to be his boom boom girl for about 2 weeks, and introducing me to the ladies who worked locally running and call houses. Blah blah blah. Blake, how did you begin your life working the sex trade, in general? There in Carson City, Mr. B's ex-wife ran a brothel, called Club Rubber or something like that. Had about 10 girls, most of them much older than me, except for 1 or 2, and I started working there, then living there eventually full-time. I took my name Anti-Lamore. Putting on a kinda punk rocker goth get-up meets Pocahontas cowgirlish peep show for clients, I began splitting my earnings 50-50 with the house mama and was quickly earning $1,000 or more a night, 5 or more nights a week. Then I started doing 2 girl shows with another of the house girls, who she also became my part-time lover as things progressed, and by the time another year and my sweet 16 came I had regular clients, a new fake identity, a relationship with my girlfriend, and we had saved up enough to start renting a nearby condo away from the job. I also had started drinking, and using my newfound friend to the end crystal meth. I was snorting it daily for sure, and was making my way up the ladder of the dark side fast. Planet rocking my pretty ass to Mars, thinking I was a rock star, and at the time I was. At least in my own mind. Selfish, strung out, and so dumb it hurts to think about now. Blake, describe how you began working as a prostitute. It wasn't really like I woke up one day and shazam I was a whore. I guess it came down to wanting control over my decisions and my lifestyle, as screwed up as it was becoming. It's simple what makes you get down to that level. Think about it this way: a client may want to offer you something in exchange for your body, like you gotta pay rent or get your next fix. So, they offer to put your rent on their credit card, or trade you for a sack of dope. But you say to yourself, no, hell with that, you give me the money for selling you my body, then I can pay my own rent, buy my own drugs, food, shelter, whatever the hell I want. You gotta get that mindset, or you will end up just becoming some pimp puppet or worse. Somehow, I made that connection early on when I wanted out from under people who were taking their cut of my life. I haven't strayed from that attitude too often yet, sometimes, but you gotta want control of something or you have nothing that is really you. That's all I can say. Over the course of the year or two working in Carson City for madams and sugar daddies who want to control your freedom, I grew sick of paying my hard-earned everything to miniature vamps in the dysfunctional circus that you find yourself. I guess I was kinda lucky in that way. Most girls or guys are not ever gonna make that leap. And you get dragged down into a whole bottom-feeding world that is a viler that you wanna know. Trust me. There are some lot worse things than being alone in the streets, much worse things. Blake, how old were you by then? We are talking about 17ish. I was totally independent and working without anyone except maybe the occasional girlfriend partner up before I turned 18. For sure, because I got busted for drugs for the first time on the weekend before I turned 18, which was when I split from Nevada altogether. I wasn't gonna do the whole probation, community service thing, or start doing my PO, which is what my girlfriend I got busted with stayed and did. She violated her release terms and still ended up doing 90 days in lockup, even after fucking her official watchdog dozens of times or more. She was stupid, that's all I gotta say about that. I chose to get out of Dodge, and headed to San Francisco, and was there for my 18th adult birthday. I got drunk on Haight-Ashbury streets at a jazz concert in the park. Totally one of the best nights of my life. California dreaming, baby. Blake, what is your life like now, other than sexually? You can't call the lifestyle I live most days a real life. It is just existing. All I do most days is cop, fuck, and cop again. I just barely stay numb enough to function mostly. Blake, what is your sex life like? I have no sex life. Yeah, occasionally I meet someone and have good sex for a minute, but if I didn't work doing it I would never need to have sex again in my life. Period. I have had enough for one lifetime. Fuck fucking. Blake, what social relationships and friendships do you have, close ones or otherwise? None that are worth talking about. All my relationships are somehow tied into my lifestyle. Even my friends want something from me. Sex, dope, money, or all three. I stay to myself almost all the time. Good thing I like being alone. Only child and foster kid, kinda goes with the territory, you know. Blake, how does drug and alcohol addiction affect your life now? I gotta do something, drink, pills, anything just to be able to work most days. I am a poly abuser, and I have done everything to get high at one time or another in my life. My drug of choice has always been alcohol, followed close by speed, and cocaine. I also smoke grass to sleep a lot. Blake, how do you view homosexuality, bisexuality, and heterosexuality, and which of them defines your sexuality? I am bisexual by the nature of what I do for a living. You can't discriminate in my line of work. It's bad for business, and bad for making the most of the opportunities that come your way. Personally, I don't like men or women very much. But I probably would choose to have sex with men if you pressed me for an answer. They shut up, do their thing, and I know how to communicate with them better. Most women end up pissing me off. They think they are smart when they are really stupid. Or they are so stupid I don't even want to empathize or see myself as the same species as them. Stupidity is my biggest prejudice. I consider it a virus. Stupidity spreads from one stupid person to another, very few people seem to have any immunity to it. Women are slightly more stupid on average than men just tend to be ignorant and stubborn more often, but that is a bias, I know it is. I have no proof to back that up. It is just my experience. Both the sexes are fucked up really. Blake, what do you see yourself doing in the future? Hopefully something fucking else than this shit. That is for sure. Blake, what if anything do you wish you could change about your life? If I could wave that magic wand, I would wipe the whole thing clean. Maybe one day I will get the guts and actually do it. But short answer for you, everything. And anything left over too. Blake, what are your views politically? I don't vote, mostly because I am a convicted felon. But I am not affiliated with any parties, and I am not right or left wing, liberal or conservative. Politics is a game to keep sheepish minds blind, and to keep weakened souls weak. I believe in the idea, the meek shall inherit the earth, one of the only Bible verses you will ever hear me utter. The meek have no politics, only needs. And needs are never one-sided. Blake, are you religious? I am more of a spiritual person than most would guess, but religious, no, not particularly. Blake, are you creative or talented in ways that you don't show publicly? Pay me enough and I paint you the Mona Lisa baby. Yeah, I have all kinds of skills on the computer, I have taught myself. I do my own clothes, sewing design, I know photography and am good with a camera video shooting. I am great with makeup, and my work requires me to be one part actress, one part counselor, and one part therapist. You'd be surprised how many clients are actually looking for validation and healing for their guilty hearts, or losses in life. A spouse that died, a relationship that left them stuck and scared, frozen from moving forward, and of course sexual surrogate for many a man or woman's dysfunctional sexual problems. And then there is just the straight stamina and athletic working out regularly that you must do to keep your body able to meet the demands of sexual intercourse with 2, 3, sometimes up to 10 partners per day. Your body, mind, and soul are constantly in need of maintenance just to work each day. Blake, what is the worst thing about your life? That I can't really see much of a way out. I've tried detoxing a couple times, halfway houses, women's shelters. I always end up back to this. I don't know if I really can change yet. I'm a full-time addict, with a full-time addiction and bills to support. At least $200 a day just to get up in the morning, and it never ends. The cycle is your life. I don't recommend it to anyone. The root of my problems comes from somewhere so deep down, that I just wanna kick my inner child's ass. She gets in the way of my progress in life. She is rebellious, wants to cause trouble, and rarely has anything productive to add to the dialogue. My inner childish bitch is out of control, even on her good days. But she is the part of me that carries the scars, of my childhood abuse, and my love for the people who broke my spirit. It really sucks to be self-aware enough to understand what is wrong with me, but dumbfounded by denial enough to not give a shit. That is what happens. Abuse comes from abuse. But I try to forgive those who helped shape the way I am, because your abusers are yourself. And nobody seems to care about it. Blake, how do you mean? I mean, you can't really hate them or blame them, once you understand how abuse has changed you as a person. As the abusers, they were usually abused themselves. So their violence was internally suppressed rage at the people who neglected and abused them, usually as a child also. That was another eye-opener for me. Blake, where does it all end? I am not sure it does. I've had this talk a few times, then a client of mine made a really good point that persuaded me. One day, oddly, while he was fucking me in the ass, we had this weird moment of clarity. He told me this. All of us are abused or are victims of the effects of abuse, or are the abuser. because everything in the human condition is basically wildly out of control. Inner child issues. The bigger picture is this: one person molests a child, that molester was victim of a head injury from their physically abusive father, that father became physically abusive because his mother would drink too much and have sex with her own son as a teenager, that drunken mother was raped by her uncle and her foster mother did nothing about it, that uncle was really gay but never came out of the closet because his father was whore chaser, the gay man's mother committed suicide, to keep from murdering her husband, the husband's whores become addicts, and then 2 out of every 3 of these people has at least one child in their lifetime, and round and round and round. Reality is, the reason there is incest, murder and abusers are because of the first caveman or woman who molested or murdered the first child, and they did it to another and on and on. A person abusing a child as we speak is repeating the karmic debt of a 25-generational cycle of deep subconscious victimization that began with some great-grandpapa in the Neanderthal age. That would also explain why some of us feel the need to do sexual things with animals and a whole load of other stuff. Everyone who victimizes is trying to undo their own cycle. And yes, I do think all of them are victims, I just don't think we can cure anyone. We have to learn how to nurture some really bad people to health as a human tribe. And that is going to take a lot of work. Blake, whoa, that was a mouthful. But it's so true. We have to nurture some really bad, and difficult people. After all, no matter what they did, they are a part of the human family and they deserve to be treated with respect. And in the end, we are helping ourselves too. It tells a lot of what the human spirit really is. The cure for all of us won't be found in the people we found compassion with. We have to figure out what cure the worst person that will ever live. And that person will be able to be a catalyst for a new turnaround, otherwise it will just be humans using antibiotics to cure the sniffles. The human race needs to build some kind of genetic immunity to our nature, which is, that we don't just enjoy doing evil things to each other, but most of the human race enjoys being a victim of it. Or a spectator, or they profit from it, or they are infected with the need. There is no real evil, only innocent adult children, who think they are doing good. The child molester believes he is teaching his victim how to be strong and accept their face, the murderer believes he is saving the souls of his victims from some much worse fate. And maybe that child is playing a game too. You don't know, many people are suicidal but afraid to do it themselves. She pauses to open a bottle, drinks several gulps down straight, and then continues speaking. Point is, humans that like to kill or eat other humans, only exist because the rest of the herd doesn't really meet nature's standard for survival anymore. Darwin knew it, survival of the fittest, predatory humans exist to thin the herd. We may not like it, but there is no other explanation for it. Son of Sam said his dog told him to kill, Charles Manson said the Beatles' White Album, Jeffrey Dahmer heard voices of the dead that led him to attempt necromantic atrocities. Hitler needed cuddling, but instead he just got slapped in the face by the propagandist view of Jews in the artwork, leading him to paint by numbers across the landscape of Europe. Maybe all of them were told to kill by their higher power. Now their lower self. I know it is an unpopular viewpoint, but I believe it is the most logical conclusion. But let's move on to another question, before I start spitting out nursery rhymes about a pedophile Jesus. Blake, okay then. What is the best thing about your life? That there is nowhere really to go but up most days. I don't really have a life. I'm not sure if you can, when you fuck for a living. It is no life. I hate myself almost every day, or I'm depressed, or just too high to know any better, numb. Mostly you just stay numb, or you'll wanna kill yourself. Blake, you said that you have been arrested and served time. At least a dozen times I have been arrested, mostly drugs, twice for solicitation, and once for assault with a deadly weapon. I served 30 days twice in county jails for solicitation charges while in Los Angeles, 90 days for drug charges in San Francisco, and 6 months in actual state prison for assaulting a cop in Phoenix, Arizona. That one was all my fault. I really fucked up. Blake, What is your personal motto? Anti-FTW. Fuck the world, either that or SWP, Superior Woman Power. I like to play on the superior white pride slogan and turn it on its head, but fuck the world, which has a twofold meaning for an amazing girl like me, either to hell with what the world thinks, or I will give the world a piece of me, one fuck at a time. See, I have the FTW and SWP tattoos on my knuckles. This was true. She showed me that she did have these acronyms tattooed on her hands. On the left was a pentagram, then FTW, on right was SWP and an inverted pentagram. Both thumbs had anarchy or anti symbols tattooed on them in red ink as well. She said she had done them herself, after the interview. Anti, but also love yourself, or at least I am trying to make it a sort of motto these days. Blake, I think that is a perfect place for us to wrap this interview up. Is there anything else you would like to say as we conclude? She sits her bottle down and drops her robe to the floor. Suddenly she is completely naked. Looking at herself in the motel room mirror reflection. Anti, nope. I think we have done enough talking for one afternoon. And I have been waiting to show you something all morning. Thank you to all the people who might read this. Anti L'Amour loves you, baby. Then in voice mimicking Porky Pig from Looney Tunes, she ends off saying only this. Anti, THTH, that's all folks. As a few footnotes to this interview. Anti wants me to make it clear, that in no way does she wish to be contacted by anyone, email, or otherwise, that this is an attempt to purge some things and to possibly help others like herself get some perspective. It is not an advertisement, solicitation, or an attempt to make connections or new clients. She has a full plate in her life already, so stay away, and get your kicks someplace elsewhere. Anti and I have been friends for a while now, but in no way would I ever betray her trust or confidence. I also will not answer any personal questions concerning our friendship or anything else. I won't give any real details, but I know Anti pretty well. We have had a friendship long enough to realize that we have a lot of similarities in our backgrounds, except we had different forms of abuse and neglect. Hers were more physical abuse, mine were more mental abuse. She made me realize that I had actually been very much put through psychological traumas that she had never even experienced. It kinda is her gift. She has a real direct way of seeing people's dark sides and being at ease with it. It actually was very disarming getting to know her, but I would have valued her friendship either way. Perhaps the hardest thing is that some things just have to run their course. People will choose their paths even if at first, they had them thrust upon them. I worry for my friend as much as is safe. I have also learned that I can't put myself too far out there, to be honest. We crossed over into a very deep and intimate level when we first met. I don't think I need to be specific. She is a beautiful woman. That said, Anti became someone that was dangerously reckless once the barriers were lifted. Luckily, I was able to recognize it, and saved a friendship, but it got out of hand, and when it did. I am saying too much. Anti is my friend. I'd help more if I was able, she would accept it if she were able. Sometimes friends are better people under each other's influence. It wasn't the case with us. Friendship is the limit, anything further we would be Bonnie and Clyde. Not Romeo and Juliet. Get my meaning. But that's okay, she and I are different people. And honestly, I wouldn't change her if I knew how. So much of who we are, is exactly that, who we are. If this interview gives another girl out there food for thought, or keeps her from making some of the same errors in life, then some good has come of it. And for those who would cross-examine and judge my friend Anti for anything that has been said, then perhaps you should give this interview another read, and cross-examine your own life and bias. For nothing is as plain as it seems in any person's life. And no book can be judged by its cover. That it seems to me goes tenfold for judging a human being for the life that they are trying to sort out. Anti is a goddess in her own world, and she is as proud as she is fragile. She is all that, and at other times she is not really there. It has been a tough friendship, and ultimately it didn't end well. Friends in such situations, you can only expect so much. I'm not afraid of reality. But that others get something positive out of it makes it a good thing. Interviewing one person is a unique perspective. And I agree there was a lot to be told here. I truly believe that your childhood impacts you for the rest of your life. Just about every alcoholic has something in their childhood that lead them down that road. What hope was there for a normal life when Anti had to go through a childhood from hell? I will never understand how people can be so evil towards children. Even if you protect them as much as you can, you never know what might happen. One abusive episode can mark a person for life. I better stop now. We all have many things to learn from people like Anti. Compassion never begins with prejudice, understanding never ends in blame, and progress never begins with self-righteousness. Anti is one woman like millions that are living today, and have lived in centuries before now. The oldest profession it is called in literature. Anti calls it the same old job offer from the same old man, just another day. Or as one of her favorite bands The Who once said, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. God bless you, Anti. Love is the will, love under law. Money from home. Blessed be.